Good day and welcome to our video presentation about our research proposal. But before starting with the contents of this research proposal, I would like to introduce first my co-authors, Ms. Noreen Marie Albina and Ms. Mary Jane JANITO. Our research title is Students' Experiences of Learning Mathematics Using the Modular Teaching Approach, Basis for Training Design. These are the contents of the research proposal: the introduction, the statement of the problem, the theoretical and conceptual frameworks, followed by the review of related literature, the research methodology, the significance of the study, the operational definitions, and of course, the references. Let's start with the introduction. Almost 2 years into the COVID-19 pandemic, close to half the world students are still affected by partial or full closure of the schools. And over 1 million additional children will fall below the minimum proficiency levels, of course, in the different subjects as a result of the health crisis. COVID-19, we know for the fact that COVID-19 has wreaked havoc across the world. And like any critical sector, education has been hit hard. And we know for the fact that we are only beginning to understand the economic impacts of COVID-19. But many other issues have emerged and need to be urgently addressed, like the closure of schools and its impact on learning and burden of education on students, parents, and teachers. But even in this time of pandemic, Filipino parents will always value education as one of the most important legacies they can impart to their children. You know, they always believe, not just them, but all of us believe, Filipinos believe that having a better education opens a lot of opportunities that would ensure a good future and eventually lift them out of poverty. Thus, they are very willing to make enormous sacrifices to send their children to school. Most Filipinos, or shall I say most Filipino parents, always put in the minds of their children at the onset of attending the school that they need to study hard and do their very best in their studies so they will land a good job. Because Filipinos, all of us Filipinos, maybe not all, but mostly, we view that education as the primary avenue of our social and economic upliftment. But the COVID-19 pandemic is the very reason why a great challenge is faced by the teachers today. Not just the teachers, especially those who are in charge of the curriculum. In statistics presented by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, or shall I say UNESCO, 87% of the student population was affected by the pandemic. And we all know that. Most often affected are students who are in the marginalized sectors, including the poor and the disadvantaged students. But even in this crisis, UNESCO believes, not just UNESCO, but all of us believe that education cannot wait. If learning stops, we will lose human capital. And so, because of this, the Department of Education, or DepEd, wholeheartedly decided to continue the study this year despite the crisis faced. Students continue to learn even as this pandemic tests the whole world. DepEd reviewed the curriculum and the competencies that students need to learn throughout the system. The analysis showed that there should be fewer competencies. And we call those competencies the most essential learning competencies, or the MEL. The MEL will be the basis for continuing learning in all subjects. That's the reason why education curriculum experts, the teachers, have developed modular learning approaches, which are thought to help the students, the kids, our pupils in learning, even when they are simply at home with their families. Most of the studies about modules focus is on the effectiveness of its usage. And I know for the fact that you know that also. Mostly of their studies talk about the effectiveness of its usage. However, the present study focuses specifically on the use of the module in teaching students in public schools as their primary learning tool. Not just for public schools, but other schools, even if it's private, are also adopting this approach, the modular learning approach. Currently, a modular approach to learning is being used. Teachers, students, parents, and other stakeholders have been part of this innovative approach to tackling the new teaching normal. And because of these issues and concerns, me and my co-authors formulated these problems. This study aims to identify the experiences in learning mathematics of the learners in Piapi High School with an end view of developing a training design for effective teaching modules. Specifically, the study seeks to answer the following question. To what extent do students use a modular approach to learning, specifically in the aspects of activities included in the module, extent of content understanding, clarity of instructions, language, visuals, illustrations, and graphics, help from a parent or family member, help from teachers, and ease of availability and acquisition of the module as an approach. The second one, what is the performance of the students in the task in each module that they answer? Is there a significant relationship between the extent to which students use the modular learning approach and their performance in mathematics? What are the problems encountered by the students in learning mathematics using the modular teaching approach? What strategies can be used to overcome these problems? What changes or modifications can be made in the modules for optimal mathematics learning? And lastly, what training design can be developed for effective teaching modules? And for this, me and my co-authors were able to develop the hypothesis, our null and our alternative hypothesis. Our null hypothesis, there is no significant relationship between the extent to which students use a modular approach to learning and their performance in mathematics. For our alternative hypothesis, there is a significant relationship between the extent to which students use a modular approach to learning and their performance in mathematics.
So let us now proceed on the theoretical framework. So in this study, the researcher deserved to use Michael Moore's transactional distance learning theory. So this theory began when Moore explored in 1972 the different methods of distance learning and the different teaching approaches, such as the modular learning approach to distance learning. So this theory defines the relationship between the teacher teaching and the students learning, even though the two have physical and temporal distances, especially in this time of the pandemic. So let's now start with transactional distance. So transactional distance, as distinguished from physical or temporal distance, this refers to the psychological or the communicative space that separates instructors from the learner in the transaction between them, occurring in the structured or planned learning situation. And based on the current situation in the context of the Philippine Department of Education, particularly in public schools, the use of the modular teaching approach together with the online learning and blended learning is an example or are examples of the transactional distance learning together with online and blended learning. And it is used especially in the prevailing situation caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, in Moore's aforementioned theory, according to Routledge, there are three aspects that are emphasized that describes the entirety of distance learning or the current situation in the Philippines, the use of the modular approach to learning. So there are three. The first is the instructional dialogue. The second is the program structure. And the third is the freedom of learning. Let's start with the instructional dialogue. When we say instructional dialogue, this refers to the dialogue developed by teachers and learners in the course of the interactions that occur when one gives instruction and the other responds. The second one is the program structure. When we talk about the program structure, this determines the transactional distance learning, and it refers to the elements in the course design or the ways in which the teaching program is structured so that it can be delivered through the various communications media. Also, programs are structured in different ways to take into account the need to produce, copy, deliver, and control these mediated messages. Structure also expresses the rigidity or flexibility of the program's educational objectives, its teaching strategies, and its evaluation methods. Also, in the context of learning, we use the MELCs. We call it MELCs, or the most essential learning competencies, or the most important learning competencies is selected despite the crisis that we are facing. Okay, and these competencies became the basis for the writers of the Department of Education, most specifically in the division of Dumaguete City, to be able to carry out modules that are currently in use throughout the division. Okay, also in the division of Dumaguete City, especially in Piati High School, we schedule the distribution and retrieval of modules per grade level. So just like, for example, in grade 7. So in grade 7, we distribute and we retrieve the modules every Monday. So therefore, parents come to school to return and then get another set of modules. Last is the freedom of learning. Independence is the most important word in freedom of learning. Students' autonomy can be seen in this process. If they themselves plan to achieve their success in competencies or learning goals and make personal learning decisions in the program, especially in the various experiences that are possible. Also, a student becomes more independent in learning as the structure of the program also increases and the dialogue in the learning also moves away. Then, based on this figure, it shows how the variables of the dialogue and the structure determine the transactional distance. So more structure and more dialogue means that the transactional distance increases. Conversely, if there is less structure of program, there is less dialogue, then it means to say that there is a decrease on the effectivity of the transactional distance. Let's now proceed on the conceptual framework. So the conceptual framework is the basis, or the basis of this framework is the independent and the dependent variables regarding students' experiences in the modular approach to learning mathematics. So the dependent variable is the performance in mathematics in the modular approach. On the other hand, the independent variable are the experiences of students in the modular approach, just like, for example, the extent of the content understanding, the clarity of instructions, the language, the visuals, the illustrations and the graphics, help from the parents or a family member, help from teachers, the ease of availability and acquisition of the modules as an approach, and the activities contained in the module. Also, the researcher has concluded that the independent variable may be related to the dependent variable directly or indirectly. It depends on the duration of this research. Also, the outcome of this study will help provide training approaches used in learning for the current school year. This figure shows the schematic diagram of the conceptual framework. So these are the independent variables, the students' experiences, and the dependent variable is the performance or the effect of their experiences. Now is on the review of related literature. So this section contains the related literature and studies that describe learning mathematics using the modular teaching approach. So first is the modular approach. Learning is in the form of individualized instruction that allows learners to use self-learning modules, or what we call as the SLMs, in print or digital format or in electronic copy, whichever is applicable in the context of the learner, and other learning resources like learners' materials, textbooks, activity sheets, and all others of the students nowadays. The second is the modular approach during the pandemic. So the modular approach during the pandemic is the most popular type of distance learning, especially in the Philippines. We have problems with internet connection and the like. So in the Philippines, this learning modality is currently used by all public schools, if not all, majority of the public schools. Because according to the survey conducted by the Department of Education, that learning through the printed modules or the digital modules emerge as the most preferred distance learning because other parents does not have the access to the gadgets or the internet. Third is the clarity of instructions, language, visuals, illustrations, and the graphics. So in this part, according to Pfeiffer, based on Nordquist's study, the most common inaccuracy of instructions is its complexity for students to understand. The technical level of the readers needs to be considered in making the instructions. So it is really very important to clarify the instruction, because if we do not clarify the instructions, then students will have the difficulty in understanding and in answering our modules. Also, instructions play an important role in learning. So this allowed the teacher to see if the students met his expectations in each task, because the instructions were his dialogue. Okay, and then the next one is help from a parent or a family member. So parents or family members have an important influence on students' learning. So family members play very important role in the educational system. Next is help from teachers. So in distance learning and teaching, the teacher is one of those who should pay special attention to TBLT, or task-based language teaching activities, in order to give more focus to language learning. So help from teachers is very important, because in this time of the pandemic, we are away from our students. So we should extend our help to them through the social media, through messages, and through follow-ups. And if home visitation is allowed, then we can do home visitations. Next is the ease of availability and the acquisition of the module as an approach. From the decision of the concern to use the modular approach to learning caused by the pandemic and the results of the survey, the Brigada Escuela is organized by the Department of Education. So in this activity, we encourage stakeholders to help us in the education system of our children. And also, we make sure that parents are properly equipped with the knowledge on how to do the module, and also how to distribute, how to retrieve, when to retrieve, and when to distribute. So on the other hand, even though the government has prepared the school year, there are still parents who do not want their children to continue their education for fear of the crisis or of contracting the COVID-19. In fact, most parents have called for academic fees or the cancellation of the classes due to pandemic. But the government or the Department of Education still pursued with the opening of classes, because it is also good for the children to continue their education. Next is the activities included in the module. So there are instances that a student finds the module very difficult, or the tasks are difficult, and it makes them realize that education is a painful process. Also, the difficulty of the students may come from the lack of time in doing the activities in the module. Also, a proof of this is the study of Morris in 2017, in which students who were given accurate and sufficient time in performing the task got higher marks. The products of these students were also more desirable. So in the modular approach, one of the possible reasons for the difficulty of the student is the lack of motivation of the students to learn, because in doing the task, they have nothing to ask or see the same, especially if they're having difficulties. So also, the performance of the identified students is affected by various factors, such as the attitude, their curriculum, their motivation, the technology that they are using, and the training that they have. So these factors have major contributions, especially to the future outcome of student scores, and to make the modular approach to learning the basis of their practice. This topic will be discussed by my co-researcher, the research methodology.
Research methodology. The proposed study will be detailed in here, and we are hoping that our chosen methodology will generate a useful information in collecting and analyzing data on the experiences of learning mathematics through modular learning. So first we have the research design. So the research design, or a descriptive design involving a survey, is chosen for this study. So in order to come up with an answer to the study problem, a quantitative research was held, and it is propose that this survey will collect details of the current experiences of learning mathematics through modular learning. So the method of data collection chosen is survey questionnaire, and allowing the large sample size without major expense to produce a qualitative or the quantitative data can be analyzed by statistical computer programs like CSS and Minitab. Next, for the research instrument, so in gathering the important data for the study, the researcher will use a questionnaire or a survey questionnaire. So the instructions are made clear in the questionnaires so that the students can understand them immediately. And in the first part of the questionnaire also, the researcher presented the objective of the topic and the study objectives of the in the letter. So it is divided into each aspect of the student's experiences in answering the modules, which is translated in indicator experiences based on these aspects. So experiences were marked by students according to the scale that can be seen in the questionnaire based on their experiences. And then the researcher consulted with their mentor and several mathematics teachers who also use modular learning to have a or to ensure the validity of the instrument that is being used. So aside from the school counselors, we are also consulting experts, external experts, to ensure the quality of the question. So we looked at whether there was unity in the aspects of the indicator included, and then the suggestions and comments of the corrections were also welcome to be considered by the researchers for the sake of the overall research modification based on the validity of the questionnaire. Next, we have the research environment. So this study will be conducted in the Plapi High School, and which is also situated in the northernmost part of the city of Dumaguete City. So the Piapi High School is a public school under division of the Dumaguete City Department of Education. So why we choose this school? Because same with other schools or public schools or other schools in the Philippines, this school is also affected with COVID, and they are using modular approach in learning, especially in mathematics. So the system mentioned that above in the approach used is under the guidance of the school head, and he's certain whether the preparation was carried out properly by the whole school and giving of direction, especially in the clerical activities and in preparation of the modules. So he also served as a guide to follow the health protocols that need to be implemented within the school, especially in taking the modules on time. So in retrieving and distributing the modules, we have this schedule. I mean, they have this schedule in every Monday. So while distributing the modules, so while the parents will get the modules in school on the first Monday, the questionnaires or the survey questionnaires together with the letter will also be and some instructions will also be given to the parents. Next, yeah, this is the research environment. So this is the Piapi the Piapi High School. It is just nearby, a few kilometers from the downtown area of Dumaguete City. Right, and so we have the research respondents. So the research respondents are the students from grade 11 to grade 10, and that will be with the respective teachers in every grade level. So the population or our sample or the sample was chosen randomly, and we have the total of 779 students from this school. So in grade 11, grade 7, we have 187 students. And out of 187 students, we only have 62 samples. And in grade 8, we have 229 students. And out of 229 students using systematic sample, random sampling, we get 75 students samples. And then for grade 9, we have 185 students. And out of 185 students, we have 62 samples. And for grade 10, we have 178 students. So out of 178 students, we get sample of 79 students. So the total population is 779. Out of 779, we have chosen through systematic random sampling, we have 258 number of sample size. And for next, about the data gathering. So for data gathering, a letter will be given to the division of Dumaguete City to seek permission to conduct the study at Piapi High School. So in selection of the student is random, and the survey questionnaire will be synchronized with the summary of exams given on Monday and will be returned on the next Monday. And also permission will be asked by the researchers. So as what I have mentioned that during the distribution of the modules, the questionnaires will also be included. Aside from that, we will be giving instructions to the parents. Next, we have the statistical treatment. So the study will utilize a descriptive research design for the reason that it would be the most suitable process to gather, analyze, classify, and tabulate data pertaining to prevailing conditions, practices, beliefs, and trends of the modern readers. All right. So this will be in a form of analysis and observation on a text, in-depth interviews with the respondents regarding their perspectives towards the responsibility, fidelity, and feminism in relevance to what you have read and if needed. So this is focus group discussion. So aside from the questionnaires, there are also follow-up interviews for more details for the research. And also, aside from the tabulated data, we also have the little bit of description in the research. Next, so we have the significance of the study. So this study is designed and analyzed in the experience of learning mathematics of the learners in Piapi High School, and with the end view of developing a training design for effective teaching modules. And then the result of the study will be a great help of the following persons or personals, right? So we have to the teachers. So this is basis for them in training, of course. So the outcome of the study will serve as the guide balance whether it is appropriate to continue using modular approach to learning mathematics, or if not, and then or as a step to make learning easier using module. And also we can develop more or different way or technique in learning mathematics. And for the students, it is an eye-opener to create and innovate in training design for effective teaching modules. Next, for the parents, I value education of their children. So as we have already learned that teachers are directly connected with the parents, because it is the parents who will submit the modules or retrieve or get modules from school. And next, for the supervisors and the mathematics module writers, further improve the activities contained in the modules. For our administrators, improve the training design for effective teaching modules, of course. And for our future researchers, it may serve as a reference for their future activities. Next, we have the definitions. First, the extent experience. So the extent experience refers to the extent experience experienced by the students in their respective learning. Students' experiences, it refers to the experiences of students in answering the task contained in the module. Next, we have modular teaching approach. It refers to the approach using the teaching during the pandemic, where modules were used by the students. And then learning mathematics, this term emphasizes the extreme understanding of the students in mathematics subject. Next, we have the performance. So this refers to the students' score during the time they used the modular approach in mathematics.
Thank you very much, Ms. Janito and Ms. Albina. The existence of COVID-19 pandemic brought extraordinary challenges. Thank you for that, Ms. Janito and Ms. Albina. Thank you for that, Ms. Janito and Ms. Albina. The existence of COVID-19 pandemic brought extraordinary challenges to the stakeholders, teachers, parents, and students. Thus, the researcher believed that Thank you for that, Ms. Janito. Thank you for that, Ms. Janito and Ms. Albina. The existence of COVID-19 pandemic brought extraordinary challenges to the stakeholders, teachers, parents, and students. Thus, we, the researchers, believed that there is an effect of teaching, learning, process in new normal education to students' performance, most especially using modular type of learning in mathematics. Negative or positive results, we hope that the result of this research will help all of us, especially our country, generate a productive citizenry. Thank you very much for listening, and God bless.